Hello, can you hear me? Awesome.
Chair, due to some audio issues that we're having, if we could have you read the opening statement, the audio on the video isn't working at this time.
I have it. There
on
we
this
go.
meeting.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Cool. We should
That's an
have
honor.
one on.
Okay. I'd like to read an opening statement. The Planning and Zoning Commission is composed of volunteer citizens who have been appointed by the City Council. The commission is the designated hearing body for a range of land use applications, including general plan amendments, rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council. For conditional use permit applications, the commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure and Robert's Rules of Order, and all commission meetings are open to the public in accordance with Arizona open meeting law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, city staff will give a brief presentation of the case, followed by a presentation by the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the commission chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information or clarification. The commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public who wishes to speak must fill out a speaker request form and hand it to the planning assistant. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already provided by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation. I would like to now call the July 17th, 2025 meeting of the Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. I am Vice Chair Villasenor. I will be sitting in for Chair Waitman Powell today as she is out of town. Let's begin tonight with a roll call. Commissioners, please indicate your presence after I call your name. Commissioner Nate Cottrell. Commissioner Julie Agia.
I'm here, present.
Commissioner Tony Fighter.
Present.
Commissioner Emilio Gaynor.
Present.
We have quorum. Thank you. And this is the final call for speaker request forms. If you would like to address the commission tonight, please fill out a speaker request form. We do have them available at the entrance. Do we have any speaker request cards? No. Okay. All right, the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. We have 1C, the disposition of absence, to approve and excuse the absence of Commissioners Nate Cottrell and Julia Gia from the June 5th, 2025 meeting, and 2C, minutes from the June 5th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Gaynor made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tony Fighter. Commissioners, please vote.
I vote yes.
So where do I see the votes? Oh, okay. Okay. The motion has passed. We are now moving on to new business. Item 3R, the West Wing Mountain WCF conditional use permit. Discussion and possible action to obtain a conditional use permit to allow a 65-foot stealth wireless communication facility disguised as a water tower on a vacant parcel located at 27008 North High Desert Drive, Peoria, Arizona, A5383. Staff, please present your report.
Thank you, Chair Villaseñor and members of the commission. And as you mentioned tonight, we do have a conditional use permit request for a stealth wireless communication facility. Now, the applicant, Mr. Declan Murphy, is in the audience in case the commission has any questions for him tonight. And as you mentioned, the address, the location is at the intersection of High Desert Drive and West Wing Parkway. They're on the northwest corner, with the address 27008 North High Desert Drive given to identify the property. The leasing area, which is indicated by the red rectangle there and the word site, is where the wireless communication facility would be placed. It is an HOA-owned property, and it is 65 feet in height where that's being proposed. To give a little bit of context to the site, currently it is vacant. To the north is West Wing Parkway, followed by residential subdivisions. To the east is High Desert Drive, followed by additional subdivisions. And south is the HOA building for the West Wing and West Wing Elementary just south of that. And West Wing Park is to the west. The applicant is proposing a site plan for the site, and it has access off of the existing conditions on High Desert Drive. So there's a driveway cut already there. That's where the site would be accessed from. There will be one parking space proposed for maintenance of the facility, and this equipment enclosure area, which is roughly 1,800 square feet, will be screened by an 8-foot masonry wall. As far as what a stealth facility will look like, the following slides are going to show, this is the black and white elevation there on the right-hand side. That's what's proposed. You can see the masonry wall for the first 8 feet and then the additional height leading to the peak at 65 feet. You see what looks like antenna arrays that's an inside shot. So those are not mounted on the exterior. That is all contained within the enclosure itself. These are going to be some renderings that were provided by the applicant. And we see that westbound, looking at westbound from West Wing Parkway, this is the current street condition. After, this is what it would be proposed to look like. Now, the color is not finalized on the exterior. The applicant has stated that that is being worked in cooperation with the HOA itself, but that's just to give you an indication again, the before and the after. We have 2 more renderings like that. This one's southbound, coming down from High Desert Drive, and that's the existing condition, and this is the proposed condition. So it's kind of like when you go to the optometrist. 1, number 2. And then now going northbound on High Desert Drive, the existing condition and the proposed condition. And you can see from this rendering here how the height is not exceeding the height of the ridgeline on a prominent mountain on the back there. So and for staff's analysis, we do take into consideration a bevy of criteria, but there are some limitations in what we can use to make our analysis from the Federal Communications Corporation. So we'll talk about some of those conditions that we cannot use to assess the site as we move forward in the presentation. But for now, these are a list of the things that we can use in making our recommendation. And we noticed that the existing access to the site is remaining unchanged, so it's not impacting the circulation pattern in the neighborhood. The nearest residential property line is about 190 feet away, so it is meeting distancing requirements. There will be no commercial or signage or advertising proposed on the site. The colors and the materials are going to be proposed to blend in with the surrounding environment, and they're being worked out with the HOA itself, which is the property that owns this. And that stealth design, enclosing all of that equipment, is doing the maximum to actually conceal all of these arrays and equipment that some of other cell towers that you may have noticed around that are clearly visible. This is, in essence, designed to be invisible and look more like a structure. This also allows the placement here for co-location, so that when you're able to co-locate sites, that also means the ability to reduce the amount of other towers in the area for single carriers. Now, as part of the public comment process, we do have to notice when we receive an application for conditional use permit, we send out and mail out a notice. And if we receive any letters or calls or emails of opposition within the initial notification period, then we do have to hold a neighborhood meeting prior to meeting with the commission. Now, 3 emails in opposition were received during the notification period, and so the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on June 16th at the West Wing Community Center. At that meeting, not only were city staff in attendance, but so were 2 residents from the community. The concerns that were shared in the emails and from that meeting basically can be summarized into height and visual impacts, as well as health concerns. Now, health concerns is one of those that I want to touch a little bit on here, because earlier I had mentioned the FCC and criteria that we as staff cannot use to make our evaluation. Now, under various acts and orders of the FCC and the Telecommunication Act, they explicitly prohibit jurisdictions from using health claims or concerns regarding radio frequencies, RF technology. So when those health concerns are coming in regarding to that, staff is not able to use that or ascertain that for the conditional use permit criteria. So what staff did use was the height and separation and the design criteria. And based off of that, the conditional use permit request meets all of the criteria for that city would have for a conditional use permit. That being said, the commission still plays a vital role here, because as part of the process on a conditional use permit, the commission does have the ability to add additional conditions of approval. In this case, staff feels that no additional measures would be necessary because, again, the screening is being done to the maximum extent possible, and it is meeting all of the criteria to meet for a conditional use permit. Now, the commission does also get the opportunity, if there's any detrimental issues that arise, such as the applicant starts building beyond the lease area, or they start trying to incorporate advertising or signage or lighting beyond what's already proposed in their site plan, then these are things that can make it eligible to come back to the Planning Commission to see if they want to continue that conditional use permit or other. So what led, after the neighborhood meeting, what got us to where we're at here at this meeting? Well, after the notices were mailed to the public, we did publish the legal ad as well as posted the site with the appropriate signage that's required. And so the public was appropriately notified per city standards and codes. All said and done, the findings that staff have found is that the height at the placement and the enclosures are within the limitations of what's allowed with the conditional use permit, and there's no adverse impacts that are expected to impact the adjacent properties. And so staff does recommend that the commission approve CU 25-07, subject to the conditions of approval of Exhibit 1. At this point, staff and the applicant are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Julie?
What's the distance from the tower to the elementary school that is in the area?
Let's go back. I did not do the exact measurement from there, but based off of the closest residential being at 190 feet, just doing a rough eyeball here to the field, it would be about 250 feet, but to an actual classroom building, that looks like it's going to be more than 500 feet.
And then I know there's also a community center that's right next door. Do we know the distance to the community center?
To the property, sorry about that. To the property line on the community center, on the site plan, it did show that it was about 37 feet to the property line. That being said, probably the community center is probably another 10 to 15 feet away from that property line. So you're looking about maybe 50 feet from there.
And so, I mean, that's pretty close. What are the hours of the community center, and do we know like how often it's used for exposure?
I don't have a representative from the HOA here to talk about their hours, but based off of the applicant has stated that they have had extensive communication with the HOA, and prior to the actual formal submittal, the applicant did meet with the HOA on several neighborhood meetings with them to discuss the proposal. So based off of that background, it would seem that the HOA was already in agreement, knowing that the tower is going to be there and basically on a permanent basis, that it would work, that their scheduling and their programming would still fit in with the location there. But I can also not speak on behalf of the HOA. This is all going off of information that was relayed from the applicant.
And then,
Chair, Commissioner Ogia, just to further add on to what Elias was referencing there. So that community center is for the West Wing HOA, and the HOA is the ownership of the parcel that this is located on.
Oh, okay.
So they're the ownership that is allowing for this lease to occur.
okay. And then, obviously reading what the citizens, the neighborhood, their concerns and their health concerns, which I have a kid in elementary school, I would have the same concerns. I was looking at what other jurisdictions use, and most of them are like 500 to 1,000 feet when there's a tower going up. With this tower being 15 feet higher than what most towers are, do we know if that affects, I guess, the radiation or whatever, the output? Like, how does that, I know there's a broader reach on their services, so how does that affect the environment in that area? Do we know? Have we looked into that?
Chair, Commissioner Ogia, so that is one of those things that we are strictly prohibited from evaluating our health concerns as it relates to RF transmissions. And that's specifically from both the Telecommunications Act as well as a variety of FCC orders that are issued. So though it's often something that we hear about such facilities from residents as far as their comments, it's not something that we can evaluate as part of our review.
Okay. And then since it is being considered to be put very close to an elementary school, are there measures being put in place to, in fact, by the owner of this to protect the kids or maybe to insulate them a little bit more from those? I think that would be a question for the business.
Mr. Murphy might be able to help address that as well, but what we often see is on sports fields for both elementary and high school, it is a permitted use to locate such facilities on the lighting structures of those sports fields. So that's a very prominent location where we do end up finding them throughout the city and really throughout the valley, state, and country. Yep.
Thank you.
I have a-
Commissioner Gaynor?
Thank you, Chairwoman. So only the telecommunications secretariat or whoever controls this, are they the only authority on this, on the issue of transmission and exposure to the radio signals?
As far as health concerns, I wouldn't know if they're the only authority on it. They are one of the authorities that identifies what I would refer to as preemptions for local jurisdictions. So not only does the Telecommunications Act have certain preemptions in it, but it authorizes the FCC to issue further orders in order to continue that rollout that's specified within the multiple telecommunications acts and their amendments to say that really it's in furtherance of rolling out additional network capacity throughout the country.
Okay, thank you. So, so the zoning can't dictate based on the radio signal or whatever the health risks are, right?
Chair, Commissioner Gaynor, that's correct. Yep.
And so then when the applicant applies for this, does then the telecommunications organization provide feedback on how far? I mean, do they give them that information, or does nobody give them that information? I want to be clear that there's certain zoning limitations, but if you can't base it on health, which I understand, then who does? And maybe we can ask the applicant, but as he's gone through this process, but who does?
Sure, Chair, Commissioner Gaynor. So we have the authority to review for placement in alignment with the zoning ordinance. So we have setbacks in place within the ordinance that identify if it's this height, it has to be located this far away. Unless it is a stealth facility, then it has to be located this far away. And it's dependent on our ordinance is structured that the greater the height of the tower, the greater the setback. And we try and make it to where it provides feasible locations, but also doesn't create context issues for adjacent parcels
guess-
to the extent possible.
What I forgot to mention in my question was the health risks.
Yeah, I might defer to the applicant as far as if there is a specified authority that evaluates that, but as we've referenced, it wouldn't be something that we would have the capacity to evaluate as a city.
I mean, I guess I like the project. It looks nice. I mean, it's actually very innovative. I've seen those palm trees. It doesn't look like palm trees, are just ugly. And this is a really nice, really, visually, it's a nice project. So I'm not against it. I just want to understand more as it relates to safety of the children, of the kids. It's close to a school. It's only 190 feet. You say it like it's a long distance. This is 190 feet. I think we're pretty close, right? So understanding that, I think, is the reason for the questioning, not so much because we're against it or because we oppose it. Okay, and that's all I have for now. Well, actually, no. I have a question about opposition. You said you got 3 emails. You addressed those. You had a community meeting. Have you gotten anything? I mean, did that respond to the concerns, or did you receive additional emails or calls or questions from opposition?
Chair and Commissioner Gaynor, no, staff did not receive any additional letters of opposition or emails or calls. Just at that neighborhood meeting, the 2 residents that were there, they provided their comments, and in that discussion that was held, their criteria after they were informed of the FCC restrictions or limitations imposed on the city for review, they were concerned with the issues of how is this going to blend in with the surrounding environment. And at that point, the applicant was agreeable to continuing to work with the HOA on an acceptable color solution for the tower, because as was shown in that rendering, that is not the final color of it. You could still, even though it's blending in somewhat, there's still some color that's going to be worked out as part of the site plan submittal prior to any approval of the actual site. This would be for the entitlement so that it can actually be placed there with that site plan.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for staff? I have a couple questions. Remind me again, what is the separation requirement to the nearest residential for this?
Chair Villaseñor, members of the commission, when it comes to a non-concealed cell tower, there is a 1.5 times the height that's being proposed of separation. When it comes to stealth, they're able to be placed, I don't even think it has that height separation requirement, but even using the 1.5 separation at 65, you're well beyond that condition on a non-concealed site. So with the stealth, like I said, it's not as drastic.
So would it be less than 500 feet?
Correct,
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you. And then not knowing what the HOA colors are makes me a little concerned to not know what color it is, but I am faithful that the HOA will not allow like a yellow or a neon pink tower. I am curious how the water tower concept came up, like the shape of a water tower. It does look, I find it to look very interesting as well. It's better than a palm tree.
Certainly, Chair. I believe the applicant might be able to address that a little bit further. I know that there's been ongoing discussions for years now, really, with the HOA in order to find a design solution that would integrate with the neighborhood rather than, to Commissioner Gaynor's point, a palm tree that doesn't necessarily look like a palm tree. So I think this was the resolution that
Okay.
the residents had identified they would look for more than others.
I'd like to ask the applicant if that's the case, that the residents of the HOA community agreed with a water tower concept. They did? Thank you. And I'll elaborate on where I'm going with this. I think it's really cool, but what I see immediately are young kids wanting to climb that. So I immediately jump to safety concerns, and an 8-foot wall is a great buffer for some illegal activity. So my question would be, is this okay with the nearby residents? I do think it looks super cool. And was safety kind of taken into consideration so that it's difficult for someone to climb that?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Declan Murphy, representing TowerCom T-Mobile, 8283 North Hayden Road, Scottsdale. Yes, so this is I've been working on wireless sites for 20 odd years, and so I've been involved in a lot of sites throughout the state, mainly Arizona. And in fact, we tried to do a site here in 2015, I think, at the new church when it was new. So we've been working on this area for a long time. And so this is quite a unique situation here, actually, because this was truly a collaboration with the HOA. And how the water tank came about was there was a bunch of options that were presented, and there was communication between the members and the residents, the HOA and the residents. And then we had, I think, about 3 meetings in total. And this is what was decided out of all the options, the water tank. The community kind of voted that this was the most desired option. So, with an 8-foot wall, it's, based on all the sites that we've done and work on and aware of, I think it's probably pretty safe. I mean, even if somebody was to scale the wall, they wouldn't be able to actually climb this actual structure. So I think, from that perspective, it's probably okay. And given the neighborhood, there's measures we would take at schools, for example. A lot of schools, there's a lot of sites and schools everywhere, right? And so we would normally put a topper on the wall. So with a scenario like this, if it was in a school, we would put a steel grate over. You wouldn't see it, above the wall, but we would just basically enclose for that reason, just because in the school there's more maybe risk of a kid scaling the wall. So, but I think in this location is probably pretty safe. And then, like I said, I've been doing this for 20 odd years. So on a personal level, I'm familiar with this technology. I've been working in this industry. And I certainly wouldn't be involved in a site like this if I thought this site was a danger to anybody, let me tell you. And so I know the way it's framed from a municipal standpoint, the FCC guidelines, it sounds from that, from a layman's perspective, that seems a bit extreme, right? Because there are certain guidelines, and it's not like we don't talk about this, because when I have neighborhood meetings, it's the most commonly asked question, which is legitimate, right? And so, and of course, this is governed by the FCC, and T-Mobile in this case is licensed, Verizon's licensed, everybody's licensed. And a typical site, the measurement is usually less than 10% of what's allowed. Now, what's allowed is a high enough threshold as far as RF. But anybody can measure it. So, and if I was a betting man right now, and I would bet that, and I think I'd probably win the bet, that you're exposed to a lot more RF right now in here than you would be anywhere near this site. If you were within hand's reach of the antennas, you would be in danger because we wouldn't let anybody climb that tower and get within hand's reach of the antenna for sure. But you could be around the antennas, you know, for maintenance, but you wouldn't be allowed to get that close. But you have to understand that RF is everywhere. And again, it's all measurable. Anybody can measure this. And if you go to an elementary school, I guarantee you they're using tablets that have Wi-Fi, and there's other communications on that campus. So if you were to take a measurement on the elementary school campus, I bet it would be a lot higher than it would be if you were at the base of this site. And the other thing you have to take into consideration is that the propagation of the signal is higher. So it's designed to spread a lot further, and the further it goes out, the weaker it gets. So anybody could take and could buy a measuring device and measure a site like this, and you probably have maybe you could now if you have a cell phone up to your ear, you're definitely going to have more exposure. But as you know and I know, everybody knows that everybody's home has smart devices, has Wi-Fi. Your neighbor has Wi-Fi that's bleeding into your house. So again, this is all measurable. So like I said, it's not like there is certain restrictions from a municipal standpoint in terms of how you rule on such a site, but anybody can have a conversation about the exposure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that education. I do think it's been a concern, but my question specifically was, how are we preventing people from climbing that? So for instance, your technicians, if they need to repair it, is there a ladder? Is there something that I mean, I'm thinking of youth that are going to jump the wall and they're going to climb that and they're going to fall. That's my concern. It's pretty cool. As a little kid, I would want to climb that. I'll be honest. Growing up in the Midwest, that is what we did. So I guess my question is, was the safety taken into concern? And can you tell me specifically the conversation, how we're going to prevent non-employees from climbing that?
Yeah, so, the real driving factor here is that, as you know, liability is a big thing. So, of course, this is designed so that it's not going to be climbable. Technician-wise, they'll have to have a cherry picker to get up there.
Okay, so there's no ladder then?
No,
Okay, that
no,
answers my question right there.
Yeah.
Because if your employees can't climb it and they need an actual piece of heavy equipment, then
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I do really appreciate the effort you made with the HOA community. I think that is important to have their buy-in. So thank you for the effort on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Okay. I now open this for public hearing. Do we have any speakers? Okay. There are no speaker request forms, so I close the public hearing. If there are no other comments or questions, can I get a motion for item 3R?
I don't mind making a motion if nobody else will.
Commissioner Gaynor?
Did I get ahead of you or we good? I'm making a motion. Is that okay? Okay. So I'd like the motion to approve PH 68007A, West Wing Mountain conditional use permit, and there's a CU 25-07.
Thank you, Commissioner Gaynor. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Fighter. Commissioners, please vote.
I vote yes.
Okay, I'll be patient. Wonderful, the motion passes. Thank you again. Good luck with the water tower. All right, let's move on to 4R, ASLD Parcel C, initial zoning Z25-11. Discussion and possible action to provide initial zoning on approximately 173 acres of land considered for annexation from Maricopa County Rural Residential 43 to the City of Peoria Suburban Ranch 43. The property is generally located along the 100th Avenue alignment extending both north and south of Loop 303. Staff, please present your report.
Madam Chair, members of commission, Lori Deaver presenting this particular staff report this evening. So let's get right into it. This is known as Parcel C. It is a city-initiated request before you. Why? It is per state statute. We'll get into that in a few minutes. The owner of this particular parcel that you see on the right-hand side is the Arizona State Land Department. As Chair indicated, it is off the Loop 303, both north and south, along the 100th Avenue alignment. This request tonight is to apply initial or transitional zoning for about 173 acres. So I would like to take a couple of steps back, if you would, and if you would allow me, and have kind of a brief conversation and get into some of the context and background leading up to this conversation, because it plays an important piece in there. So first and foremost, Parcel C is not within the city's jurisdiction. It's within Maricopa County. However, when you see the sea of blue in the graphic over to that right-hand side, pretty much all of the state land was annexed in the 80s and 90s, except for this piece. So this was perhaps an unintentional remnant that was left over. With that said, there is a request for annexation before council that is making its way for consideration next month. So however, before I get into the specifics of what initial zoning is, I do want to take a step back even further so that you guys see the context and history leading up to this request. First, why is it called Parcel C? Let's start with that. So as I noted in a previous slide, the Parcel C is owned by state land. It is actually one of 7 strategic or target parcels that you see on the screen that have been targeted for annexation for some time. So why Parcel C? I can tell you there was absolutely zero creativity by the planners that day when we were putting the annexation request together, and we started labeling things alphabetically, and it just stuck. So you see A, 8.1, 8.2, B, C, etc. And I noted that it's a strategic parcel, but why? It's located next to the Agua Fria River, and it's a key area in Peoria's effort to preserve river and wash corridors, and also to expand and enhance our recreational system, because we often have paths and trails next to these corridors. So from an open space standpoint, it is a critical piece in growing and creating a more robust recreational system for us. And I would be remiss if I didn't explain, there is in the middle of that screen a very important bullet point. Annexation of state land is completely different than annexation of private land. And for those commissioners who were with us during a very long and tenuous major general plan amendment conversation, I touched on there are certain federal and state laws that apply to state land that don't apply to private property. So what does that mean? Before we can even suggest annexing the parcel into the city, we have to file a request with the State Land Department. It is reviewed in its entirety. The commissioner has to accept it. It then has to go in front of the State Selection Board for approval. The State Selection Board is comprised of the governor, the state treasurer, and the attorney general. And it's not often that you get those 3 in the same room for any order of business. So we actually submitted all of these requests in 2017. We didn't receive approval to even go forward with a possible annexation of each of these until 2019, as you see. So almost a 2-year process. However, we're picking up momentum. So the city has successfully annexed what we've called Parcel B, which is Tesmer, near 107th and Rose Garden Lane. And if you recall, most recently, the gentleman beside me was the staff member presenting an annexation case, initial zoning, and the zoning case for what we know as North Peoria Gateway, which is a strategic parcel in Peoria. The North Peoria Gateway, I do want to point out, was only possible for annexation after that general plan conversation occurred. So that was an important piece. And during that annexation, or excuse me, and during that general plan conversation, we also touched on the second strategic area, and that's tonight's conversation, which is the Peoria Innovation Core. So let's talk briefly about that. When we were moving forward with the general plan designation, we specifically reclassified this area, all 6,700 acres, to what is known as the ASLD special land use. When we did that, it specifically placed a mandate over this area to be master planned. You can't piece off parcels and come in with, you have to come in with a full annexation and master planning effort and bring the city in as one. So there's some similarities and there are some differences. Parcel C was always included within that 6,700 contemplation. So with successful completion of the annexation and initial zoning, it would be rolled into those master planning efforts. Similar to the North Peoria Gateway, the goal is to create a flexible zoning bank and establish specialized land use and development standards for it. Unlike North Peoria Gateway, the state led the effort for that piece. The city is leading the effort for the PIC in collaboration with state land. So we are taking the lead on this conversation. By way of comparison, North Peoria Gateway was 1,600 acres. That's the size of a Laura Vita north and south piece of it. 6,700 acres is almost the size of Estancia. So you can see that in context. There's a lot to go through. It's a little bit more nuanced. So let me give you a preview of where we're at on some of those master planning efforts because they have kicked off. 6,700 acres is a lot to consume. There's a lot of data collection, due diligence. This schedule was presented to council in June. We are still in the early stages of ramping this up. So as you see, and key points on this one, as we come to completion with a final working draft of the planned community district, there are community touch points built into this rezoning case. And that is important to note. We've been very transparent in coming back. There will be stakeholder engagement. There will be community meetings. We will be having a conversation. But right now, we've got the pencils out and we're dusting things off and getting things ready to go. So it's not built yet. So that's the end goal. Now let's talk about steps and why we're here tonight. So as I mentioned, there's an annexation request in front of council. Tonight is an initial zoning. So let's talk and break those down. These two pieces are the most heavily regulated processes by state statute. I equate annexation to like a bad game of Twister, with what you have to do for noticing and to get things onto city council. Cody's kind of cringing because he knows he's thinking about the steps and what's all involved in this one. But it really is like a bad game of Twister. You can't go here, but you have to go here and you have to do this. But even before we get that request, we've received state selection board approval, so we have the green light. We have to do a pre-annexation analysis. There are actually policies in place that city council has, whether we're going to annex it or not. We have to do property evaluations. There's a lot of noticing out to other agencies involved. There's a petition process. We initiate that case, file a blank petition, noticing. There are 2 council meetings. The first one, as you see, is no action. That one happened in June. Now, the last meeting, as you see, action, that is slated for August 5th. When you read the definition of the procedures and you get to the noticing requirements and public hearing, there's this little tiny caveat, so follow the dotted line, that says you have to establish initial zoning on the property within 6 months after that annexation has occurred. So we talk about this as perfunctory. It is a city obligation. There is a mandate that we have up to 6 months in order to get this done and assign baseline or starting zoning. There are also specific requirements of what we can and cannot do. It has to be the same density intensity. You can't go higher than that. What they have in the county, you have to provide the equivalent of city zoning. This is a zoning case, so this action tonight comes before Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation. You can either line up concurrently an annexation and an initial zoning, or they're delayed by no more than 6 months. We often talk, and most applicants prefer, including tonight, that the cases are run concurrently. So as we've brought these cases before commission, we'll talk about the annexation. It doesn't come before, but to understand the relationship is important in this regard. So that was quite the mouthful in terms of process. So what did we tell council? State Selection Board gave us authorization. It's within our planning area. It consolidates it within the PIC, which is what we're trying to do. It's consistent with the city's annexation policy. And once we have it into there, it allows us to have one cohesive master plan for the entire 6,700 acres. So let's get down to tonight's request. It's very simple and straightforward. State law says day in and day out, you got to pick and allow densities and uses that are no more intense than what the county has. Current zoning for the county is RU43. The equivalent, as we talk about, is Peoria Suburban Ranch 43. So you're basically just taking out Maricopa County Rural and you're just writing in Peoria Suburban Ranch effectively. There is a notification process. It's a little bit more streamlined. Because this is perfunctory, there is no initial, there's no neighborhood meeting required, and we have not received opposition or support for this case. So that was pretty long-winded to get to, but hopefully it's more transparent and makes sense. So with that, we are identifying that the zoning category that we are selecting, Peoria's SR43 district, is analogous, meets the statutory requirements, and with that, we're recommending approval, asking for recommendation of approval of the case to City Council. And with that, I will take questions.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions from the commission?
This is just simple baseline zoning, like we've done many times before in the past, correct, Ms. Deaver?
Commissioner Feider, that is correct. It's just changing out the county, putting in Peoria's name in front of the zoning district.
So it's really no change to the existing land use designation. It's just moving it from county jurisdiction to city jurisdiction.
That is correct, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Feider. Anyone else?
I have
Okay.
a quick comment.
Oh,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gaynor.
I've been in this zoning
World.
for a long time, and I learned a lot today. I've never been through this process, so thank you for going through that process. It was very interesting, and starting with a background, it was just very, very informative. So thanks for doing that. It was very, very cool. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I agree, especially letting us know how we named it Parcel C. I was really questioning that. No, I'm teasing. Thank you. Staff's doing a great job as always. Okay, I will now open the public hearing. No comment cards. Okay, I will now close the public hearing. If there are now no other comments or questions, can I have a motion for item 4R? A motion? Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I give a motion for item 4R to move forward.
To approve.
To approve.
And I second.
Commissioner Aguia made a motion to approve. We have a second from Commissioner Gaynor. Commissioners, please vote.
I'll vote yes.
And the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, staff, again, for your explanation. The next agenda item is a call to the public on any non-agenda items. Are there any requests from the public to comment? Are you sure? If there are, seeing none, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is 5R, reports from staff.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. So a couple of items to cover here with you tonight. Our next Commission meeting will be on August 7th. That'll be a regular meeting. Again, it'll be in here, so I want to say for the foreseeable future, we'll be in this location. I'm guessing it'll extend probably more than a year, but we'll be meeting in here as regular. Upcoming commission meetings will have August 21st and then September 4th. A very important note that's not on the slide is there's a gentleman off to the side here that has helped with commission and council meetings for decades now. Not to age him, but that's kind of almost the least of what Ryan does, and he has been a tremendous help to our department, and I feel very fortunate to call him a friend. He may not call me the same, but he's been a huge asset to the city, and he has chosen to retire. And so we just want to thank him for everything that he's done, not only as a part of commission and council meetings, but just helping city staff get through their day. So thank you very much, Ryan.
I would just like to say thank you, Ryan, as well. Couldn't do these meetings without you, and heartbreaking to see you go. So thank you for all you've done for our city.
Well said, Commissioner Fighter. Yes, thank you for your time. We wish you well in your retirement. That sounds great. I would make the same decision if I could.
Chair, with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the last agenda item. Any updates or reports on current events from the current commissioners? And
I would just like to say thank you to the vice chair. You did a fantastic job. I believe this is your first meeting that you led, so you've led us well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, seeing there's no further business, I will call this meeting adjourned. There's my banging my gavel.